Hello, my friends. This is Kathleen Maurer from Be Again Books. I'm happy to be here with you with another project. We're going to talk about shaped journal cards today. Most journal cards are rectangles, right? There's nothing wrong with that. They're easy to make. They work beautifully. But when every element on a page has the same silhouette, our eye begins to skim over it. And today I want to show you how simply changing the outline of one journaling card can make an entire page more interesting. Yeah. These shaped journaling cards, folded ones that we're going to talk about today, provide both visual interest and extra journaling space. Let's talk about a couple of design tips or principles to persuade you to my way of thinking. The first one is that shape creates contrast, and we often think about contrast in terms of color and texture, but shape also creates contrast. Just a butterfly, a flower, an arch, some other organic shape immediately catches the eye among all the other rectangles in a journal. So let's demonstrate that by cutting this regular rectangular journal card. Nothing wrong with it, but we're going to create a little bit of contrast, okay? So I am going to, let's just start by doing a little fussy cutting around this beautiful lady image. Going to do kind of just a rough outline. I'm not going to follow, too many details. It's just going to be kind of this outline, and I'm even going to just leave, this corner down here. I think that is immediately a more interesting journal card. There's still plenty of room, on the back to write. I think though that I will come up from here. I can make a straight line. Yeah, and just make that a little bit more of a shape. Do a little manual around there, and then let's put the distress pack on. Great. So if we put that now back in there, that just really, I think, makes a big difference. Much nicer contrast, I think, with all of these other, lines and rectangles. They don't need much decoration, really, a shape. You could put a little label there or a little cluster or something, but just that shape creates a nice contrast. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to illustrate. Just leave that out over here. Okay, secondly, an organic shape kind of softens a page. So let's just look at this page, right? We've got this journal coming along, and you can see there are, the regular rectangular page shapes, but these organic shapes in this photo really soften that page. This ruffle, it's why we like ruffles so much. It's just intuitive. It just kind of softens all the sharp edges. Journals naturally contain a lot of straight edges, the ledgers and the labels, the envelopes, the pockets. Just a curved silhouette, just introduces a softer rhythm, and it keeps the page from feeling so rigid. And third, it can become just part of the decoration itself, right? So if you have a shaped card, you can just tuck that into the pocket, and it immediately decorates the page. You don't have to do, a lot of other heavy embellishments. And, sometimes if you really desperately want to, you could just use a simple cluster. Let's just take my tiny attacher and we'll just staple that on. And that looks cute. Yeah, I like it. So you can do, a little bit of decoration, but the silhouette is already doing most of the visual work. So, and then, finally, I just kind of like the functional surprise that these cute little cards provide. So they look like a decorative piece when they're tucked into a pocket, but when they're pulled out and they open to reveal the extra journaling space, that's just a little discovery that's kind of always enjoyable inside a journal. So let's talk about choosing good images, because the image is honestly the hardest part of the project. The card has to fold before you cut the shape. So let me just explain. In order to cut out the shape, you need about, I'm going to say about 3/4 of, a fold on the top. It's across the top of the image. So if you just have a tiny piece, then you have to, move the image, manipulate it so that you've got, this about 3/4 to an inch across the top. That means that the top of the image needs to be kind of fairly flat. You can kind of adjust that a little bit just by moving the image up and down. But when you look for images, if you kind of look for those that sort of have a flat surface, then you can, kind of get away with that easier. It just makes it easier. The image needs enough background sometimes that part of it can be folded over without cutting through an important detail. So I try to avoid any tiny points, narrow stems like this. That wouldn't be good. Complicated outlines, but I look for this smooth silhouette like the broad petals on the flowers. Not complicated outlines, graceful silhouettes, right? Birds, butterflies, arches, that kind of thing. This is, even though that has a little bit of an arch, it can be folded without a problem. So these are easier, to use, and they hold up better with repeated use. So let me show you a couple of examples, and then I'll show you how to set up the page. So this is a cute squarish kind of example. Here's a little teacup, like I said. The top can just be folded to the back and doesn't bother at all. On this one, I've just added this little bit of fluff on the handle. This one has the cluster. This one I have just a little bit of glossy accents on the flower centers, but you can see that this image had kind of a flat top, so I knew I could just fold across there and it would be good. Same with these little cloak glasses. They have this part that much would not have held up well in a folded card, but I can just fold across there and it's still just fine. Same with the bee skep. Yeah. I hope you can see how this works. So here is this big flower image that I've chosen over here. That works well. Here's a butterfly, And sometimes they're a little bit awkward, right? So you could see that with this butterfly, I just moved everything down so that I could cut out the head, but the wings would fold. Yeah. This one, I just manipulated it on the page so that it was just the little tip of that one wing that got folded. And that still folds out cute, gives me lots of journal space. And it's just a cute shaped card. Yeah. Okay. So if you're going to use printed images, then you just set it up on the page like this. So you need to move it down so that when you make your fold, you've got, plenty of room up here. So just remember to put the images on the bottom part of the page. So here, I put all of these across here because I knew that when I folded them, when I did the scoring, then I would have still room enough to cut around. I hope that's clear. You don't have to just rely on printed images though. If you own a die cut machine, you can use the dies. And I don't have a lot of shapes, but I do have this pretty, oval shape. And so I just cut out a folded piece and left, the top of the die open so that it wouldn't cut the fold. And then just added these cute little butterflies to the edge. Yeah. So a die cut, if you've got lots of fun, big shaped dies, that would be a cute idea too. Okay, so let's demonstrate how to do this. Oh, I was going to say, the other thing you don't need, if you don't have a printer or a die cutting machine, you can still do this with images, that you use from a magazine. So I have just cut this. It's not cardstock, it's just paper, but I'm going to show you how to work that. I just cut this out of this magazine. These are a couple of images too that I found. This one has this, the image for me would start about right there in a fold. This one is also really squared off, but would still make an interesting shape. So to do that, like you would do on a printed sheet, I would just take an ordinary coffee dyed paper and then glue these down to the paper with, the fold up above. So I'm just gonna leave the top, just the very top of her head to go across the fold. Leave enough of a margin around the image that I can cut around it. And then you just take your scissors and again, leaving a little bit of a margin. Cut around the shape. This might be a fun shape to decorate just a little bit. It might be fun to maybe put a hair bow, I don't know, something just right here on her hair. But then that flips up. There's journaling space. And then she just slips into the pocket, like the other shape. Or you could do it like this. Yeah. I think these are just cute. I hope you like them. Let's try this one. We'll glue this down on this paper. I'm going to put the top of that image kind of right there, right along the fold. I'm not the best fussy cutter, you can tell, probably. I do find that it helps to sometimes get rid of some of that extra paper that's getting in the way. There we go. Let's see, what have we got on the back? Okay, we could do a little curve right here. Yep. Yeah, kind of cute, don't you think? So, magazine images, yeah, book page illustrations, whatever you can find. Okay, now let me show you how to do these. These are also simple to do. I'm going to take this regular rectangular card and we're going to score right at the top of her head. Let's see. Nope, that's not good, so we need to come down one. So we'll score. Oh, we need it to come down even one more. Yeah, I think. You don't want too narrow, you know, of a fold, because otherwise it'll tear, or you know, it won't stand up. And then you want to fold it so that it's straight. Okay, and the other little part is just there on the back, and that's not a problem. And then leaving a nice margin, just cut around the image. I think a bigger one. Okay, yeah, that's cute. It's kind of faded. The colors are kind of faded. So I think maybe I'll take my chalks and kind of increase that tinting a little bit. We'll do that in a minute. Let's finish this one. I'm anxious to see how this one looks. So this has this whole big leaf right here, and I just really kind of want the grapes. So I'm going to make the line, the score line about right here. Make the score. And then fold it. Give it a good crease. And then we'll start the shape about right here. And it's a little harder than regular fussy cutting because you've got 2 layers. And if you use cardstock, like I did, you've got 2 layers that are kind of thick and want to shift. So it is a little harder. Okay, now we have to decide how to cut at this point. I think I'm just going to cut in a diagonal like that. Okay, there's my grapes. There's the inside. There's the back. Not as much room to journal on the back. But I do like that. Yeah, that's cute. Okay, I think she looks a little better now. Yeah, just with a little bit of tinting. And I love the grapes. Yep, both. Okay, let's see what we have. We've got these, just these printed shapes, images that are just digital images and printed, you know, as I showed you, on regular cardstock paper. I love them. I think they're really darling. Here's a little embellishment on that one and that one. Yeah, it can make a difference, but you know, I think they don't have to be embellished. I mean, I think that looks cute just on its own. And here's the die cut one. Here's the image one that we just put on regular paper. Here's the little girl image. Yeah, and even just one layer in a journal card, I think just really kind of helps. Hey, so today's project wasn't really about making one particular journaling card. It was about remembering that shape is another design element that we can use in our journals. So the next time a journal page feels like it needs a little more interest, don't just automatically reach for another embellishment. Sometimes just simply changing the outline of one piece is enough to make the whole page feel fresh again. P.S. I thought maybe you would like to know where my inspiration for this came from. I have had these little Christmas note cards in my stash for years. I mean, I don't make a lot of Christmas journals, but I have included these in some of the ones I've made. But I've had them for probably 7 or 8 years. And I saw them in my drawer the other day, and it just reminded me, you know, that we could do these shaped kinds of cards just with our own images. It didn't have to be Christmas. But if you're into Christmas in July, then maybe you'd like to do Christmas images as well. But that's kind of what I was thinking when I wanted to do this video. So, yep, there you go. One more tip. Don't ignore the things that are in your stash. Might give you ideas for something else. Thanks for being with me. We'll see you again with the new project.